The superior man is universally broad and not partisan. Confucius, truth needs no allies. That comforting phrase, repeated like a mantra by the naive, is a fatal delusion. Truth, in its raw and unflinching form, is a weapon, and weapons require careful wielding, strategic deployment, and yes, alliances. To believe otherwise is to walk unarmed into a battlefield, convinced that the purity of your intentions will shield you from the blades of your enemies. This is a lie perpetuated by those who benefit from your weakness, those who fear the power of truth wielded effectively. They preach of solitary enlightenment, of standing alone in the face of adversity, all the while forging their own pacts in the shadows. Consider the politician, surrounded by advisors, speechwriters, and strategists, all dedicated to crafting a narrative, a version of the truth that serves their ambition. Do you believe for a moment that they stand alone, guided only by the unadulterated light of honesty? Or observe the corporation, its legal team and public relations department working tirelessly to shape public perception, to spin inconvenient facts into palatable stories. Their truth is carefully manufactured, a product of collaboration and calculated manipulation. And against these coordinated forces, the lone voice of dissent, however truthful, is easily silenced, dismissed as the ranting of a madman, or buried under an avalanche of misinformation. The world is not a meritocracy of ideas, where the best arguments inevitably prevail. It is a battleground of competing interests, where power and influence determine whose version of reality takes hold. To imagine that truth alone is sufficient is to ignore the brutal realities of human nature, the inherent biases and prejudices that cloud judgment, the relentless pursuit of self-interest that drives individuals and institutions. A single candle, however brightly it burns, can be extinguished by a gust of wind. But a coordinated network of lights, strategically placed and carefully maintained, can illuminate even the darkest corners. Alliances are not necessarily signs of weakness or compromise. They are a pragmatic recognition of the need for strength in numbers, for shared resources, and for coordinated action. To align yourself with others who share your commitment to truth is not to dilute its purity, but to amplify its reach and impact. It is to create a force capable of challenging the entrenched powers that seek to suppress it. Think of the scientific community, built on collaboration and peer review, a network of individuals constantly testing and refining each other's findings, striving towards a more accurate understanding of the world. This is not a solitary pursuit, but a collective endeavor, a testament to the power of alliance in the pursuit of truth. The error lies in believing that truth is a static, immutable entity, a single objective reality waiting to be discovered. In reality, truth is often multifaceted and subjective, shaped by individual perspectives and experiences. To navigate this complex landscape, we need allies, individuals who can offer different perspectives, challenge our assumptions, and help us to see the world more clearly. These alliances are not about blindly accepting the opinions of others, but about engaging in critical dialogue, about testing our own beliefs against the scrutiny of informed and intelligent minds. Therefore, do not fall for the seductive illusion of solitary truth. Seek out those who share your commitment to honesty and integrity. Forge alliances, build networks, and create a force capable of challenging the lies and deceptions that permeate our world. Only then can truth prevail, not as a lone voice crying in the wilderness, but as a chorus of clarity and reason, capable of illuminating the path towards a more just and equitable future. Remember, the lone wolf may be romanticized, but it is the pack that survives. And in the struggle for truth, survival is paramount. The comfort derived from consensus is a dangerous narcotic, a siren song luring you towards intellectual stagnation. While the scientific method, with its peer review and collaborative analysis, undeniably advances knowledge, it is crucial to understand its limitations. The consensus it builds often represents the prevailing paradigm, the accepted framework through which data is interpreted. This framework, while useful, can also blind its adherents to anomalies, to data points that challenge the established order. True innovation, the kind that shifts paradigms, often comes from individuals who dare to question the consensus, who are willing to stand alone against the tide of popular opinion. Their initial findings may be dismissed, ridiculed, even actively suppressed, but if they are grounded in verifiable reality, they will eventually erode the existing structure. The history of science is littered with examples of individuals who were initially ostracized for their heretical ideas, only to be later vindicated as pioneers of new fields of knowledge. Consider the physician Ignaz Semmelweis, who championed hand-washing in hospitals to prevent the spread of infection, a practice vehemently resisted by his colleagues, leading to his professional ruin and eventual demise in an asylum. His truth needed no allies then, and was ultimately rejected. The value of alliances lies not in their ability to validate your existing beliefs, but in their capacity to expose their weaknesses. A true ally is not an echo chamber, but a crucible, a forge where your ideas are tested and refined through rigorous debate and critical analysis. Seek out individuals who possess the intellectual courage to challenge your assumptions, to point out flaws in your reasoning, and to offer alternative perspectives. This is not a comfortable process, but it is an essential one for intellectual growth. The pursuit of truth is a lonely road, often marked by resistance and misunderstanding. The majority prefers comforting fables to uncomfortable facts. They seek validation, not enlightenment. Therefore, be wary of alliances formed solely on the basis of shared beliefs, for they are often built on fragile foundations of mutual delusion. Instead, cultivate relationships with individuals who value intellectual honesty above all else, who are willing to sacrifice popularity for accuracy, and who understand that the pursuit of truth is a never-ending journey, not a destination. In the realm of strategy and power, the reliance on allies can be particularly perilous. Information is currency, and the more people who possess a piece of information, the more diluted its value becomes. Strategic advantage often lies in possessing knowledge that others do not, in understanding the underlying dynamics of a situation before your competitors. Sharing this knowledge with allies, however well-intentioned, inevitably increases the risk of it being leaked, exploited, or used against you. Furthermore, alliances create dependencies. You become reliant on your allies for information, resources, and support, which makes you vulnerable to their betrayals or miscalculations. A true strategist understands that strength lies in self-reliance, in the ability to operate independently and to make decisions based on your own analysis and judgment. This does not mean isolating yourself entirely from others, but it does mean being selective about who you trust and what information you share. The most effective alliances are often temporary and transactional, formed for specific purposes, and dissolved once those purposes have been achieved. Remember, the pursuit of power is a zero-sum game. Your gain is often someone else's loss, and your allies are ultimately competitors waiting for an opportunity to advance their own interests. Therefore, cultivate a healthy skepticism towards all alliances, and never mistake cooperation for genuine loyalty. True understanding often demands solitude, a space free from the noise and distractions of external influence. It is in these moments of quiet contemplation that you can truly examine your own beliefs, identify your biases, and arrive at your own conclusions. Do not be afraid to challenge the prevailing narratives, to question the accepted wisdom, and to forge your own path, even if it means walking alone. The path to truth is not paved with the approval of others, but with the courage to think for yourself. Consider the rise and fall of the Medici family in Renaissance Florence. Initially, they were merely shrewd merchants, but through calculated manipulation of banking and political power, they rose to become the de facto rulers of the city. Their ascent was not achieved through brute force or divine right, but through a network of carefully cultivated alliances. They befriended artists, scholars, and influential members of the clergy, using their patronage to gain prestige and legitimacy. However, their reliance on these alliances proved to be both their greatest strength and their ultimate weakness. As the Medici's power grew, so did the envy and resentment of their rivals. Families like the Pazzi, who had once been their allies, saw their own influence diminishing and began to plot against them. The Pazzi conspiracy, culminating in the assassination attempt on Lorenzo and Giuliano de' Medici within the walls of the Florence Cathedral, serves as a stark reminder of the treacherous nature of alliances. The Pazzi were not simply motivated by personal animosity. They were driven by a desire to reclaim their lost power and influence. They saw the Medici's dominance as an obstacle to their own ambitions, and they were willing to betray their former allies in order to achieve their goals. This episode reveals a fundamental truth about power dynamics. Alliances are often based on a shared interest in maintaining the status quo, but when that status quo is threatened, those alliances can quickly dissolve. The Medici, in their pursuit of power, had become too reliant on the loyalty of others, failing to recognize the underlying currents of ambition and resentment that were swirling beneath the surface. Their trust was ultimately misplaced, and they paid a heavy price for their naivete. The aftermath of the Pazzi conspiracy saw a brutal crackdown on the conspirators and their supporters, further consolidating the Medici's power. However, the experience left a lasting mark on Lorenzo de' Medici, who became increasingly wary of alliances and more reliant on his own judgment. He understood that true power lies not in the number of allies one can amass, but in the ability to anticipate and neutralize threats, even from those who appear to be friends. The Medici learned a valuable lesson. Alliances are useful tools, but they should never be mistaken for genuine loyalty. In the game of power, every player is ultimately motivated by self-interest, and even the closest allies can become enemies when their ambitions collide. Therefore, a wise ruler must always maintain a degree of detachment, cultivating a healthy skepticism towards all alliances and relying on their own intelligence and strategic acumen to navigate the treacherous currents of political life. The Medici story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of placing too much faith in others. It demonstrates that true strength lies in self-reliance, in the ability to see the world as it is, not as one wishes it to be, and to make decisions based on cold, rational analysis, rather than emotional attachments. The trap that awaits the weak lies in their desperate search for validation and support. They believe that safety can be found in numbers, in surrounding themselves with people who echo their beliefs and reinforce their sense of self-worth. They crave the approval of others, constantly seeking reassurance that they are on the right path. This need for external validation makes them vulnerable to manipulation, as they are easily swayed by those who offer them the acceptance they so desperately desire. Their judgment becomes clouded by emotion, and they fail to see the hidden agendas and ulterior motives that lie beneath the surface. Instead of cultivating their own inner strength and developing a clear sense of purpose, they become dependent on the opinions and approval of others, forfeiting their autonomy and becoming mere puppets in someone else's game. They lack the self-awareness to recognize their own weaknesses, and they are unable to see the subtle power dynamics at play in their relationships. This blindness leads them to make poor decisions, aligning themselves with individuals who ultimately exploit their vulnerabilities. The truly strong, on the other hand, understand that true strength comes from within. They do not seek validation from others, but instead cultivate their own internal compass, guiding them through the complexities of life. They are not afraid to stand alone, to hold unpopular opinions, or to challenge the status quo. They understand that true power lies not in the number of followers one can amass, but in the ability to think critically, to make independent judgments, and to act with unwavering conviction. They are masters of self-control, able to manage their emotions and avoid being swayed by the opinions of others. They are strategic in their alliances, carefully choosing